This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, Michael Covel. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. Today in society, there's so much what I call, boiling pot of water lobster behavior out there. And the point being is if you take a big old pot of water and you put it on the stove and it's cold water and you put a lobster in there and you bring it to boil, the lobster is really never gonna really move around. He's just kind of gonna take it. He's just gonna kind of accept his fate. But if the water's boiling and you try and throw him in there, he's probably gonna throw a fit. But the point is that most of society, most investors today, I think, are like the live lobster in a big pot of cold water as it's slowly coming to a boil, and they don't know. And I guess I was somewhat inspired even to bring that up because I was thinking the connections here are entirely crazy because Dance This Mess Around was another B-52s song, and that was what got me into the lobster song. But those were both inspired from a quote that I saw from Christopher Hitchens, the author, provocateur, debater, challenger, skeptic, who unfortunately passed away last year from cancer. And Hitchens, I actually briefly met him in person on the Excella going to New York from DC one time. Didn't really get a chance to talk with him much, but he had this great quote the other day, and essentially a defiance quote. Now, if you're a lobster and you're in the water and it's cold and it's starting to get hot and you're not really doing anything, there's not much defiance there. But I loved what Hitchens said. And I know I've got some namby-pambies in my audience that every time I curse, they kind of go, "Oh, Mike, you shouldn't curse. You shouldn't do that. Don't do that." Anyways, Hitchens' quote was, "Don't let them fuck you around." Come on. That's just, what a great, let me count the words. That's 1, 2, 3, 6 words. 6 words. Don't let them fuck you around. Could almost make a song out of that. Don't let them fuck you around. Don't let them fuck you around. Right? Give me a baseball bat. I want to take batting practice. So anyways, the point of today's monologue is to talk about gambling, or what people call gambling. And I got a couple different analogies here. There's an article and a video on my website, a TED video and an article. And I'm going to read an excerpt from this article and then kind of talk through this gambling video, so to speak. And this is called The Illusion of Control, Dancing with Chance. First, you accept that there are things you can't control. Then you try to assess the uncertainty and finally augment your plan to make sure you manage risk more effectively. That means using models, independent opinions, internal and external advice, and any other means to assess the unknown risks and to make your business nimble and open to change when the unexpected happens. Not surprising, I'm going here from a trend following perspective. You're better off focusing your energy on planning for the range of possibilities that could actually happen. For example, it's very difficult to tell which startup business will be successful in the early stages. If you accept that, a better strategy is to try to diversify over a number of projects, just as venture capitalists do. Not all the projects will pay off, but you diversify your risk so that you have a better chance of nurturing one that will succeed. Trend following, right? 10 trades, 7 are losers, 3 are winners. They pay for the losers. Continuing. Chance and randomness play a significant role in business and our lives. The point is not that the world is hopeless and you shouldn't do anything. It's just that we should do a more careful assessment of what we can predict and what we can't predict. And where we can't predict, then the effort and the resources are better spent on planning. Instead of trying to predict this, which you actually cannot, you're better off spending your resources and effort on planning for various contingencies. And when it comes to managing risk and investing, be average, be patient, be risk aware, be balanced. Just beautiful language for a trend following trader. Beautiful language for an investor who wants to succeed. You can't know. You can't know the range of possibilities. This morning I was thinking, well, for this particular episode, I would go look at the headlines and read the headlines for today and use those to counterweight my views on chance and uncertainty and luck and gambling that I'm talking about. And then I thought to myself, God, I could be no more bored than to go look at the imaginary stories that populate all of the news wires this morning. I would have rather have gone down to the Ace hardware store and bought a nice pair of vice grips, taken 5 shots of Jack Black, and pulled my front incisors out with vice grips and been a bloody mess, dripping as a drunken fool, bloody mess with no teeth, that I would have liked to have waken up. I guess that's a tad bit violent. Really not a violent guy. It's just a good illustrative example. No teeth. Son of a dentist, I guess. I have pulled my own teeth out before. I'll tell you a really weird tooth story as the son of a dentist, just to go off on a tangent. I only had one wisdom tooth. It's just one. Just the other, there's empty spots in the other 3. No wisdom tooth. My father had 3 wisdom teeth. And the one that he was missing was the exact one that I had. Okay, for all you folks out there that know something about genetics, I'll let you play with that. I'm moving on. So this video that I thought was great on TED was by a guy named Dylan Evans. And it was like, what can we learn about gambling? Now, clearly, the setup, reading that passage from The Illusion of Control, Dancing with Chance. Gambling is such a, for a lot of people, it's a pejorative. It's not a word. They hear the word gambling, they think Vegas, and this is just nasty stuff. Or, it's just whatever feeling comes up for people. And there's different feelings. And the thing that I liked about his video, and you'll see this when you watch it, is he talked about 3 different types of gamblers. And in many ways, you could view this as 3 different types of investors. And he says there was 3 reasons that they gamble. So the 3 types of gamblers are problem gamblers, leisure gamblers, and expert gamblers. And they gamble. They gamble for a reason. They have, how do they handle profit and loss? And what do they bet on? So, for example, a problem gambler gambles for fun. A leisure gambler gambles for fun. An expert gambler gambles for money. Now look, it's a whole different discussion to debate money and the goal of money. That's a whole different discussion. And for those of you out there that want to consider money evil, I implore you to go read Francisco de Acuña's speech in Atlas Shrugged about money not being evil. That's a whole different issue. But once again, problem gamblers gamble for fun. Leisure gamblers gamble for fun. Expert gamblers gamble for money. It's very concrete. Very concrete. Next step. Let's talk about profit and loss. And you can see this chart in the video. The chart's, it's just a nice, easy chart to read. Problem gamblers, when it comes to profit and loss, it's all about unaffordable losses. Meaning a problem gambler can't stop. They're gonna bet the farm. They're gonna lose it all, and then they're gonna start selling the kids' college tuition. Maybe they'll sell the kid. Who knows? Okay, so problem gamblers, day traders, get rich types, these types of things. Leisure gamblers, slightly different. Profit and loss situation, leisure gamblers, it's affordable losses. So they actually have a strategy of saying, as a leisure gambler, I'm only going to allow myself to lose a little. I know my limits. It's kind of the nascent stages, the beginning stages of a stop strategy. They're still gambling for fun, but at least they know they've got a limit. They can't keep, they don't want to go the problem gambler route. So it's for fun and they have a limit. Expert gamblers, the ones gambling for money, well, it's profit loss. They're in this for profit. They are in this for profit. And it's a matter of a goal setting issue. Because if you say expert gambler and you kind of substitute trend following trader, you're gambling for money. That's the goal. But when it comes to profit and loss, the aim is profit. You are, over many, many, many plays, you're looking to end up with profit. It's very specific goal setting. You're not just namby-pamby and saying, I don't know what's going to happen. No, your goal is profit. Now we haven't even got to an approach yet, a system, a strategy. We're not even at that point. We're just defining who these gamblers, wink, wink, investors are, traders are. So the third issue is, what do they bet on? And this starts to become the strategy element. So a problem gambler will bet on anything, right? A problem gambler is going to bet on, the girl walking across the street, how many shots he can drink, the horses, football, you name it. And they're gonna it doesn't make a difference where they get the money from. They might even have the money. They're just gonna lie, cheat, beg, borrow, steal to bet. It's gonna be on anything. Because the thrill for that individual is so high. The high is so important. It doesn't make a difference whether there's any strategy, whether there's any money. They just have to bet. Now we can theorize as to, and once again, this is nice in the zero-sum game of this world, because if you have plenty of people that are playing like this, and you're playing with a good strategy, well, you can take their losses. And look, if they walk into the game and they're playing the game with you in the game of the markets and they lose their money, that's the way it is. So your problem gamblers will bet on anything. Leisure gamblers will pretty much bet on anything too. But remember, they have limited downside because it's affordable losses. And I've always kind of never given that middle of the road standpoint on leisure gambling. And I guess leisure gambling defined with affordable losses, I can accept. It's not my cup of tea. I don't really get much out of it. But I can accept it. I can accept and say, okay, why not? If that's your thing and you've got your losses, I'm not so sure that a lot of leisure gamblers can really do it, but let's assume they can. Okay. Expert gamblers bet only on games with an element of skill. There is where the rubber meets the road for the ultimate trend following connection. So they bet on only with games with an element of skill. Poker, blackjack, sports betting. Maybe there's some others. Where can you put the odds on your side? So the expert gambler is after money, after profit, but only in games where skill can shine through. Doesn't this seem like so rudimentary? It kind of seems like basic stuff. Like, I don't know why they don't take us aside when we're like 9 years old and start explaining this to us. Instead of sitting us in these classrooms where they tell us, well, look, little Mikey, memorize the map on the wall. Okay, yes, I can memorize the map on the wall. At 10 years of age, I could draw the continental United States and where all the state outlines were. Next, now what? Look, if some kids aren't fast enough, fine. Put them to the back of the line. But you know what? There's a lot of kids out there that are not being exposed to things that they should be exposed to. And this way of thinking at a very early age, this risk management thinking, this uncertainty thinking, luck chance, gambling thinking. And think about it in the right way. Tremendously important. Now think about what's on the other side of my whole conversation today. What's on the other side of my conversation? The other side of my conversation is very simple. I had a great clip in my film, Broke the New American Dream, on this. It's the lottery ticket insanity. I mean, we went to a place in outside Richmond, Virginia, Short Pump, Virginia, and we went to I think it was a Shell station where they had sold this multi-million-dollar winning ticket. The numbers of people that came to that Shell station after the multi-million-dollar ticket being sold there, because they thought that somehow or another there was a connection because there had been a recent winner at that Shell station, that they should now come to buy their tickets there. Like, you don't even know where to start with that logic. Once again, this isn't necessarily a bad thing if you're awake, because if you're awake and most of the world operates in this kind of hazy world, this hazy logic world, this hazy, I have no idea how to attach probabilities to my life. That's a good thing, especially in the markets. Especially in the markets. In the TED video, this guy Dylan Evans goes on to explain something else, which I think is really nice from a trading perspective. He goes on to talk about the 3 ways to make decisions from his perspective. So the first thing is you set a threshold. Maybe it's how much you're willing to lose. Something really simple. Number 2 is bet sizing, which for all of you out there that have some trend following perspective, you're going to know immediately what I mean. But for those that have not heard the phrase, bet sizing, look, if you've got $10,000 in the bank, how much do you bet on each play, on each trade? How much do you bet? Do you bet 1%, 2%, 10%? You bet 10% on each trade, and you get 10 losers in a row, you can be done pretty fast. So bet sizing, extremely important, extremely important. And number 3 is the expected value. Kind of the math term, like what if you play the game with the rules that you have, if you have good rules, whether it's poker, blackjack, sports betting, or trend following trading, if you have good rules, what is going to be your average winner and your average loser? How much will you win on the average winner, and how much will you lose on the average loser? And just cranking that little formula out, which is really straightforward and simple, you're looking for a positive number. The larger the number, the better. That's your expected value. Now, if you think about this, you could really, and I'm not going to even attempt to do it, but you could walk down to the corner block in your neighborhood or your city, and you could watch people crossing the street. You could watch people using the red lights, not using the red lights, and watch how they cross the street. And you could probably start to figure out the expected value for certain types of walkers. You could find the expected value for those folks that, and I guess in this sense, it's the expected value of staying alive. You could find the expected value for crossing the street when you abide to all of the rules. You can find the expected value for crossing the street when you don't abide by the rules. And I'll give you a great example of that. The other day and you see these in cities, it's nothing new, but I noticed that there was a guy about 45 feet across the street from me who was walking down the middle of the street talking to Jesus, and probably multiple other people in his life that weren't there at the time. He was basically waving his arms and walking down the street. And then he took a left-hand turn, and he continued to walk up the middle of the street on a one-way street, going with traffic, walking down the middle of the street, waving his arms and talking to people. His expected value for life is going to be different than somebody that uses the sidewalk, uses the stoplights, etc. His expected value is going to go down. His expected value for continuing to stay alive will decrease if we were to kind of, and we could probably crunch the math on this. We could probably sit down if we really wanted to do it. We could kind of like do some surveying and look at the statistics and really figure out the expected value for this. But this is the way to think about the world, right? Now, it's much harder to, if you sit down and you say, I want to figure out the expected value of making market decisions by using every piece of fundamental analysis and news that comes across Yahoo Finance and Bloomberg every day. So I'm going to take all those inputs in and I'm going to figure out the expected value. Good luck. Pie in the sky. Fantasy Island. I hear tattoo. Hold on. I hear tattoo. Yes, I've not heard tattoo for a long time. But the plane. It's true. So yeah, come on. It's impossible to do that from a fundamental standpoint. And I'm going to go out on a limb, and I've said this before. I know Ray Dalio says everything he does at Bridgewater is 100% systematic, using fundamental inputs only. Okay, I'll bite. For the rest of us, forget all that. You want to find the expected value? Use something that's easily measured. The market price. You can look at the market price of a diversified portfolio of markets. And you can have an entry and an exit strategy and a bet sizing strategy and a portfolio selection strategy. And you can find a positive expected value. Absolutely, 100%, you can find a positive expected value. That means you can make money over the long haul. That's all that matters. I mean, it's not all that matters. I mean, I wouldn't be talking about yoga if that's all that matters. But in the context of what I'm talking about right now, finding your expected value, that's what you want. That's the trick. Stay focused on that. Check out the video online. Check out the article online. And when you hear the word gambling in the future, if you don't already have a positive view of it, look at gambling in a different way now. Think about it in terms of probabilities. Think about it in terms of payoffs. Think about it in terms of problem gamblers, leisure gamblers, expert gamblers. Think about what they're all after. And where do you want to be? Whose team do you want to be on, so to speak? Whose philosophical team do you want to be on? That's it. That's the trick. Almost forgot. One last thing. I love getting emails, okay? I love people giving me feedback because when I get feedback from either listeners to my podcast or readers, I learn something new or I see something new. And I've had a friend who has wanted me to read this book, The Alchemist, for a long time by Michael Covel. And I've not read it. So I get an email from a guy named Mike Blaine. And Mike tells me that I got to check this book out. And he says, it's about a mentor relationship between an alchemist and a boy, but it's really full of metaphors for lessons in life. And he says it seems to be appropriate to the philosophy behind trading, particularly having to constantly make many hard decisions just to follow a long-term goal. And Mike goes on to say in his email, he says, there was also a passage which struck me as fitting to your general podcast sentiments. The two characters in the book are stopped and searched. In the alchemist pockets, they find a piece of the philosopher's stone and some of the elixir of life. When asked, the alchemist tells them exactly what they are and that they can turn any metal into gold and make you live forever. And then they all laugh as if he's, joking. As they walk away, the boy asks why he told them the truth. The alchemist replied, it's often the case when you tell people the absolute truth, they rarely believe you. End quote. That's the fantastic thing about my world and my life right now. Most people don't believe. Most people want some other, I mentioned tattoo earlier. They want some other fantasy. They want the Kim Kardashian fantasy. They want the reality TV show fantasy, the lottery fantasy. The hard work part, that this is how the world really works part, they don't want that. So you can literally tell them. And I think Rich Dennis actually had a great line years ago about trend following rules. Publish them in a newspaper and people wouldn't follow them. You could publish them in a newspaper and people would not follow them. And it's a great reminder that even when you have your system, once you have your system, it quickly switches from the importance of the system to then 99% of the importance is the 6 inches between your ears. That becomes the mission critical formula. So I just love that alchemist thought. It's great. Great stuff. Till next time, have a good one. I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.